Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark's movie reviews, a spoiler-free discussion detailing the good, the bad, and the downright ridiculous of anime movies. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai, and I'm joined tonight, for the very first time, by our chivalry of Shota's Shotaro.
Pop off, sis.
And good lord. And tonight, you and I are going to be reviewing Summer Wars.
Yay!
Yes, yay indeed. So a little bit of background information. So Summer Wars is an anime film that was released in Japan back in August of 2009. So it is over a decade old now. It was directed by Mamoru Hosoda. He also was the originator of the story. The screenplay for the actual movie itself was written by Sakato Okudera. It was produced by Madhouse, which you can definitely tell by looking at the animation in it. It's definitely aged well. And after its complete run throughout the world, it ended up grossing an international box office of $18.4 million US. So, now that all that's out of the way, let's actually talk about what you and I think of this movie, because you and I both rewatched this movie today. I think it's also worth pointing out that you and I both rewatched the dub instead of the sub.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I watched the sub originally.
Oh, really? Because I until today, because when I started watching the movie, which is something that John and I have done in the movie reviews that we have done so far, is we typically will watch the first few minutes of the movie sub, and then we'll rewatch the first few minutes again dubbed, and then we'll decide which one to watch. But I did that this time, even though you and I watched it separately. And I have to say, I still prefer the dub. This is one of those anime movies, or just anime in general, that I preferred the dub. It's how I originally watched it, and I still prefer it that way.
I never watch dubs, but I watched it because it was the only way I was gonna force my family to watch it with me. So
yeah, well, given the themes of this movie, your family is a good group of people to watch it with. But I want to talk first about the art and animation. So, as I said, this movie came out in 2009, and it was done by Madhouse. And it's definitely indicative of Madhouse's style back then, I would say, especially when it comes to the animation. During the fights that you have in this like digital world of Oz, where like half of the story ends up taking place, the fight scenes are really fluidly animated, which is a huge contrast to the stuff you see in the real world, where like character designs are clunky and they're stumbling over and around all the places, and like very boxy character designs. It's a huge contrast. It's almost like you're watching two different movies.
boxy. I don't know if I wouldn't really call them boxy. They're like all just like stick figures. They're not stick figures, but they're very simple character designs in the real world.
That's kind of what I meant by boxy, like very simple, like geometrical shapes and like easy outlines.
I didn't really find it geometrical, but
simple designs.
Sure. Which is what
Everyone's
you would expect.
Everyone's so thin.
Yeah, I know, they're all little shrimps. But yeah, that's what you kind of expect from anime movies. There's not a lot of anime movies that have very unique character designs, unfortunately. I don't know if they do this because they think it's classy, or if it's like supposed to appeal to a non-otaku audience, but it's there. But
well, there's another possibility. It's just easy to draw.
But this is literally 2 hours compared to the run of a television series.
I'm just saying it's a possibility.
Then why don't we see
character
this?
designs?
Why don't we see this kind of character designs in television series? We literally only in movies.
I mean, you got a point. This also, the character designs themselves are somewhat indicative of other Mamoru Hosoda works, namely the Wolf Children and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. So, I mean, this could also be a Mamoru Hosoda thing, just the how very thin every character seems to look.
I feel like Wolf Children... No, you're right. Wolf Children did have these kind of characters. Maybe it is his personal taste. But, I mean, they weren't horrible. I mean, it's just different from, like, normal anime. I still... It was still had its, like, simplistic charm. So I like the character designs. But and even though they had rather simplistic character designs, the way they animated the characters moving was pretty good. It was very lifelike how everyone was like moving and like bumping into each other. And
Yeah.
like I recall the scene where, there's kids on their, I know they're not, but they look like they're on their switches. Just like in a car, and then the car is just like tilting to the left and tilting to the right, and then you see the kids like bodies sliding across the seats. I mean, like, it's really good anatomical movement, and it really makes you feel like it's an actual, like you're looking at an actual scene happening. You really get into the scenes that are happening.
Unlike a lot of anime character designs, the characters in this have like appropriately proportioned eyes for the sides of their heads, which is really weird at first, but you grow to get used to it really quickly. Which it's very un-anime, but also anime at the same time. I don't really know how else to describe it. It's just they have like more correctly proportioned eyes, and it also makes their faces, I think, more expressive. Like for as like generic looking as some of the character designs are, when they're having their big spastic moments, their faces are very expressive.
I guess so. But even when they're like spazzing out, it's still very limited or very like calmed down compared to what you would expect of anime. I don't know if that's a product of the time.
I think it is, because there's other films from around that time, and I mean I know I'm pointing out a Mamoru Hosoda film, but like The Girl Who Leapt Through Time does the exact same thing.
Kind of reminds me of the animation and character design of Welcome to the NHK.
Yes,
Which was
that.
also around that time and is also Madhouse ?
Yeah, well, it's definitely Madhouse. I do believe it was around the same time.
Yeah, 2007, I think.
Okay, so a couple years before,
Or
but yeah,
not.
Definitely Madhouse.
I'm looking at the wrong thing. Got the wrong thing. Give me the wrong information. It's 2006. Big difference.
Okay, but it's still not that far away. But it is Madhouse, so it's par for the course, I think, in that regard.
Yeah.
So a couple other things to mention about the art and animation. The stuff that takes place in the real world is very natural colors. Your greens, your browns, your blues. But then you get to the world of Oz, and everything is so very brightly colored and very pastel. It's a huge contrast, and it makes it very easy to tell like you're in a completely different world now. And I love that contrast of like the online world versus the real world.
Mm-hmm. And the art style in Oz is almost like Animal Crossing, kind of like Minecraft figures,
I don't think that's entirely wrong. It's that much of a contrast.
Bobblehead people. I don't know if it was CGI, but it seemed very CGI. And normally I would say this is cheap and I can't watch this, but in Summer Wars, it somehow worked out because it looked somewhat normal. So
yeah,
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I am too. And the CGI that is in this movie, especially during the fights and the stuff that goes on in Oz, is actually done really, really well, I think.
I will say they animated the final boss monster really nicely. I liked how they did that.
Yes. Yeah, like really fluid CGI, and it blends well with the 2D that's done in the world of Oz. Not that there's a lot. I think a lot of what you see in Oz is CG.
I think only...
At least the animation that goes
on
there is CG.
Well, I guess like King Cosma and what's her face? The woman.
Natsuki.
Yeah, her. I think those are the only non-CG people.
Yeah. But anyway, it was done really well, especially considering the time it came out, which was known for having some really shitty CG.
Honey, there's still stuff now that is shittier than what I'm seeing in Summer Wars.
That's true. That's very true. All right, so moving on to some sound and design and scoring. I think we already kind of touched on it, but yeah, the dub voice acting in this is very much above average, especially for the time that the dub was made back in the late or what was to be or very early 2010s. It's just, I won't necessarily say it's better than the sub, but it definitely stands out for other dub performances of the time, and it's probably why I enjoy just hearing it dubbed now.
I will agree that it is above average, but it's still not up to my high standards of Japanese only voice acting. Okay.
One day we will find an anime
No.
dub for you where you actually
Wait.
think it's better than the sub.
Well, the Castlevania dub is good.
That is very true. That is a very good
Only
dub.
time I will listen to an English dub is when it is the native dub.
Something else I think worth briefly mentioning is the Foley and sound effects, especially during the fight scenes and the I guess the final boss battle at the end, I guess we'll call that, with the Hanafuda game. Really well done, especially during the card battle where you hear all the cards come out and it makes that very satisfying sound like you're at the ATM, like...
Okay.
Listen, as an adult, I have grown to love that sound.
Oh no.
It's like I go up to this machine, it's like, it's giving me money.
Oh god. I don't know what version you watched, but the version that I watched, the Foley was so much louder than the voice acting, and it was hard to like pick a volume.
See that? Yes, I will say that there were times where the sound effects that's more of a sound mixing issue, but the actual quality of the sound effects was really really good. But yeah, there was definitely a sound mixing issue at certain parts of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when there were scene transitions where you would go from a really quiet dialogue scene between two people, and you would immediately go to like an action based scene where it's like there's a bunch of stuff going on. And it's like, oh my god, I am now deaf.
Yeah, it got really loud, and then when it went back to the quiet scenes, I'm like, oh, what are you saying? I can't hear you. What?
Like, huh?
Are you whispering? Hello?
Let me put my hearing aid in so I can fucking
Literally. But no, I mean, the voice acting was still pretty quality, as much as I hate it. I mean, hate on it.
And really the last thing I really want to touch on before we move to story stuff is the OST. I would say largely just kind of mediocre to above average, but there are times, especially during the tense fight moments, like the first fight with King Kazuma and the big bad Love Machine, which I fucking love the fact that the AI boss is called Love Machine.
No. Makes no sense.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
The OST during these fights, and especially during the Hanafuda boss battle at the end, was really well done. It suited what you were seeing on screen so damn well.
Yeah, there was this one track that I really liked near the end of the Hanafuda scene. And it really made the scene, climax well.
Yes. All right, so moving on to the story and the narrative and the structure of the what was being done. I have said in the past that I have a slightly love-hate relationship with Summer Wars, and this is where the hate part comes in. So I think that the initial setup to the story is really badly done.
I agree, but I think that they just keep going on and on and on. Like, girl, I got it from the first 3 sentences. You didn't need to give me all this exposition. I think someone greenlit Hosoda for way too much screen time. And he didn't need all that screen time, girl. Listen, you could have edited it down.
No, I actually disagree. I think there needed to be more. I actually think instead of a movie, this actually should have been maybe like a 6 or a 7 episode OVA series, because it would have been a really great way to actually build out this narrative. Because I mean, the overall narrative is the main girl Natsuki needs a fake boyfriend. Okay, fine, but why? Why did you choose this person? Why did you originally go to him? I would like to have seen that.
Yeah, I don't know why she chose him. That is a question.
I mean, it's kind of it's sort of explained in an offhanded line that they are in the same club in school and that's how they know each other. But I mean, that's so offhanded. I would like to have seen some.
Isn't she like the most popular girl in her class?
I don't
Why?
know. I
If
don't think
she,
that's ever really explained.
I think like, or at least in the dub that I watched, the glasses friend was like, "Oh, you're going out with the most popular girl in the class." But if she is the most popular girl, then why did she have to go around begging? Couldn't she just be like, "Snap, snap, bitch! I got
Also, why did
10
she go to this
husbandos
random
waiting."
nerd?
Huh?
Why did she choose this random nerd?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. There's a lot of questions that I think if this had been like an anime miniseries, we could have gotten so much more out of it. And I would have liked that because the ending of the movie would have impacted me a lot more had I known more about the backstory of some of these characters in Natsuki's family. Like
Oh.
you're given like 4 or 5 lines for each of them. It says, all right, this is what I do, this is where I came from, this is how I'm related to her, and then you're just kind of have to go on that. I'm like, bitch, give me more. Why should I care about this one person?
Oh, I don't think the people needed more exposition. I think they're more like supposed to be reminders of your own family and be like, "Oh, you know that guy, and you know that girl, you know that bitch, you know she always there."
which is where the love part in my love-hate relationship comes in, because that's the thing I relate to the most about this movie. It's themes of like family helping each other. That's I don't know about you, show, but I actually have a really big extended family, kind of like the family in this movie. And like the scene where they're all first together eating together toward the beginning of the film, like that's what every fucking Thanksgiving looks like at my family's house.
No,
Like, there's like 18, 19, 20 of us all together around the same table.
Oh my god.
I relate to that really well.
No, I don't. I can't say that I've had. Is your family like or dinners that like hectic?
Sometimes, yes.
Oh my god. No, I don't think I've ever had as hectic as is depicted or as large as is depicted of a family get together as that. But I mean, I've had like some pretty big family get togethers, you know. I can definitely relate on a lot of different levels for various characters and scenes in this anime. So even if it's like not like exactly parallel to what you and your family are like, I'm pretty sure if you're gonna watch this that like you'll find at least some relation to it.
Yeah, especially if you're really close to a lot of your family like I am, you'll definitely be able to relate to a lot of the arguments and the, goading and shit that goes on at the first dinner with the family all together.
And even if you're not close to your family, you got Wabiske.
You do.
Your home skillet there. Ran solo dolo.
You have the black sheep, yes. Because every family has one. But it's my favorite part of this movie. Like, as cool as the tense boss battle is at the end and the fight with King Kazuma and Love Machine, like, I love this more for the quiet moments with the Jinouchi family members, because to me it's where the best dialogue in the entire story is, and it's also where I relate to the story the most. And maybe that's just me personally, but I feel like there's a lot of people that could say the same thing.
I mean, there are a lot of emotional highs and lows that go on with the relationships between the family in this movie. Surprisingly, this movie feels like I was watching it for way longer than I was actually watching it. Like, it feels like it's told me a story of a very, very long relationship between all these people. But yeah, I like all these emotional spikes were really hard hitting, really relatable, and I really enjoyed watching it.
And it's like I said, to me, that's where the story absolutely shines. Now, the actual plot, you pointed this out to me before we started recording. You're a Digimon fan, and you have seen many things Digimon related in your life.
Oh, yes.
And you pointed out to me how similar the plot line in this story is to the first Digimon movie?
I don't know what number it is, but Digimon Our War Game, as it is known, I guess, in Japan, is another film that was also directed by Hosoda. And the plot of the Digimon film is basically identical to the plot of Summer Wars, subtract the family. So everything that has to do with the internet is literally scene for scene the same movie. Which is not a bad thing because I did love that movie, honey.
It's not a bad thing for you, certainly.
Oh, honey, no. Honey, that's a plus.
And you did point out that like the avatars get in Summer Wars kind of get hurt in the same way that they do in the Digimon movie.
I mean, like all the plot points, all of the defeats and then comebacks, they're all the same. Literally the same thing. It's literally the same script. They use not the same script, but the same pitch.
Yeah. Maybe it's like that movie was like Hosoda's pitch to making his own movie at some point. It's like, one day I'm gonna make a movie like this, just not this.
One day I won't have to pay up to the copyright of Digimon. Yes. I can make my own money, honey. By ripping my own work off.
I will say the basic premise of the movie though, especially considering when it came out, was kind of prophetic in a way. Back in 2009, the internet wasn't quite as ubiquitous as it is now, and there certainly wasn't a whole lot of government agencies that put a lot of their stuff online. There were several, especially in the West, but it wasn't anywhere near as ubiquitous as it is now. So that's one thing the movie kind of got right about the future.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also worth mentioning this movie is supposed to take place like a couple of years into the future when it was made. But it's definitely something that it got right that I think stands the test of time. That you have these things like the ubiquity of social media and the internet and these conglomerates that exist online and these online communities.
Yeah, surprisingly, the themes brought up in this movie are still relevant today. It also brings up, themes of technophobia and fear of nuclear war,
and artificial intelligence.
Yes, that as well. Which I personally always find interesting because, they are all, again, relevant. And it's always, I don't know, entertaining to see what people think the technology will develop into in such a way that will destroy us all.
Yeah. For me personally, I always like seeing like past depictions of what people thought the world was going to be like in the future. It's always very entertaining to see what they got right and what they got wrong.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
especially there's like newsreel films that were made back in the 40s and 50s of people trying to predict what the year 2000 would be like, and it's amazing that they got very many things very close to being right, and then it's hilarious to see the things they got wrong.
Yeah. I mean, even today, there's so much media that is technophobic and just like how technology is going to go wrong. I don't think this film is as bad as you were talking about, that like it's so far off left field that it makes no sense, because I think it is still relevant.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, it still has themes that we see in current day media, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, for a more than decade-old movie, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of other things to point out, and then we'll wrap this up and give it a score. I didn't notice this until I rewatched it today before we recorded. This movie has a lot of product placement in it, and I mean a lot. I don't know if that was necessary to get this movie funded at the time, but and like I said, I didn't really notice it when I originally watched it back in the day. I've watched it 3 times now, and this was the first time I really noticed it. I don't know if I was looking out for it now or what, but
I mean, when are you not looking out for it?
I don't know. It's just so noticeable, and I can't believe that it took 3 watches for me to notice all the product placement in it.
I feel like every anime you watch, you tell me about all the product placements.
Oh, I notice it a lot in anime movies now, because I think a lot of anime movies today require it to get financed.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's just something weird that I never noticed before when I rewatched it. But the last thing I want to talk about is a question that you brought up before we started. Do you think that this story is too embedded in Japanese culture?
Watching it this time, I felt like it kind of lost. Well, I was watching with my family, so I felt like it kind of lost my family when they were having the koi koi moments and when they were like reminiscing about their samurai accomplishments. I'm like, this is kind of hard to relate to. But I think it maybe just slightly too much, Japanese culture to appeal to the wide general public. Yeah. But it's just a bit over, just tiny bit over, I think.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. I mean, yeah, I would say it's got just a little too much Japanese culture to have a broad appeal to a non-Japanese or non-Asian audience.
I feel like if they remade this story and they changed the samurai background to like, I don't know, World War vets, and then they changed Hanafuda to like chess or like a more global game, the climax might have been a bit more intense. Yeah. I mean, the climax was still not bad, even though I didn't understand what she was doing. It was still pretty cool, but I feel like it might have been cooler if I did understand what she was doing.
Yeah, I mean, Hanafuda is a real game, but it's not a game that's played by an enormous amount of people outside of Japan. So, I mean, if you had something like chess or checkers is probably too comedic, or just a more worldly recognized game, I think it would have had more of an impact for people outside of Japan.
Like poker or blackjack. Something.
I mean, they end it when they're having this Hanafuda battle. It's in a casino. I mean, there's many casino games that are recognized the world over.
I don't know if roulette would work because that doesn't really require skill.
No, it requires almost no skill. It's all luck.
Yeah, but
trust me, it's a game I play a lot.
Oh no.
But that's it. So let's wrap this up. Show, what score out of 10 would you give Summer Wars?
Honey, I forgot that we were doing a score, so you tell me first.
Well, I can tell you what I originally gave it back in the day. Back in the day, I gave it like a 9 out of 10. After rewatching it today, I have actually downgraded that to an 8 out of 10.
Oh my god, no, Alex. I also downgraded it. Well, I had originally given it a 10 out of 10.
Wow, shocking.
It's like, woo! Okay, I went a little bit overboard there. But now that I've watched it again, I think that it is, I think it's a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
It gave me the feels that I don't get a lot with other anime. I think it gave me a unique emotional reaction. So I think it deserves a 9 out of 10. But it's not a 10 out of 10 because I don't like movies.
I like your Jesus Christ show.
I don't like movies.
Can be a 10 out of 10 because I don't like movies.
It's a movie, not gonna work for me.
All right, well, that is Summer Wars. So thank you all out there for dropping in to listen to us. We hope you enjoyed it because we always enjoy bringing this stuff to you. If you want to check out previous episodes of the podcast, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, BitChute, SoundCloud, and Spotify. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, you can join us on Discord, Facebook, Twitter, and our website. Shoot us an email if you have any questions or if you have ideas for topics or movies you would like for us to talk about in the future. Links to all these things will be down below in the description. As always, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, show.
Koi koi, bitch.
Hey, you want to hear something funny?
What?
The whales in Oz are named John and Yoko.
I love those whales. They're so adorable.
Oh my god.